Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. I am Patrick. This is Storytelling Imperfectly, and welcome back to the channel in the new year. Happy 2022, everybody, and I hope that you guys had a marvelous holiday season so far. But it is the start of the new year, and with the new year, guys, comes a new mysterious story. So sit back, relax, it's story time, and let's see if we can't figure out what happened to Corey Carl Fay. Back on November 23rd of 1991, Corey Carl Fay, a 17-year-old young man from Oregon, decided to go hunting. Now, he reached out to, according to mixed reports, to a guy named Mark Mapin. Now, Mark was either a friend of Corey's father or a friend of his. How, I don't know. But also, Corey had another friend who went with he and Mark to go elk hunting in the Tygh Valley of Oregon. Now, this is a rugged area. It's mountainous, like a lot of places in Oregon are. And that wasn't that big of a deal to Corey, because Corey was an accomplished hunter as well as a outdoorsman. Not only that, guys, but he had gone to like survival school. Like, the guy had taken courses in outdoor survival. So he knew what he was doing when he was outdoors. Now, when he, Mark, and this other guy went on November the 23rd. Again, the reports vary. I've read multiple reports now about this. And from multiple reports, it's not clear exactly on what time that they left to go hunting. However, there is security footage from McDonald's drive-thru that showed Mark and Corey and this other young man there at 6 in the morning to get breakfast. Although we do know that they did end up together in the Tygh Valley area of Oregon and set out to go hunting. Now, according to Mark Mapin, he encouraged Corey to take all of his gear with him that he might need when they went to go hunting. However, according to Mark, Corey said, "No, I'm good. I'm only going to take a few certain things, not everything that he had brought with him." What we do know is that Corey had his backpack, a heavy winter coat, because again, this is Oregon in the winter time. It is November 23rd, so the weather gets cold. He had his rifle with him, extra ammunition. We know that he had a solar, like a aluminum blanket, a survival blanket. He had a lighter or matches with him, the ability to start fire, all right, and water. The kid was prepared to go out into the woods. Now, the trip wasn't supposed to last for a long period of time. In fact, they weren't even camping. This was just a day hunt. And they all separated, which is also a major point to a lot of these missing person cases, is a point of separation. Guys, if you go out in the woods, I highly recommend take a GPS with you and go with people and don't leave them. Stay with the people you're with, please, because in a lot of these missing person cases that I cover, there's always a point of separation. And this is what happened with Corey as well. So Corey, Mark, and this other young man separated, went their own ways to go elk hunting. Mark Mapin later told the sheriffs that in Wasco County, that when Corey didn't show back up to the car at about 6:30 that night, he knew there was a problem. Now, by 6:30 that night, it had gotten dark. Again, it's wintertime, the days are short, the nights are long. And so another thing that Mark had said to the sheriff was he knew that there were elk in the area, but he found it extremely odd that they didn't see any elk. Nobody did. And neither two gentlemen that had come back to the car, Mark and the other young man, and he didn't know if Corey had or not because Corey hadn't returned. This kicked off a massive search, guys. At this point in time, the Wasco County Sheriff's Department got Oregon SAR, search and rescue, involved. Hundreds of people came out to look for this young man, as well as they brought in the 7 best sniffing dogs in Oregon to look for this kid. They had helicopters looking for this young man as well. They covered a 10-mile radius searching for this kid. No, nothing. Zip, zilch, nada. The dogs didn't pick up a scent of him. Nothing had happened that they could find. There was no sign of foul play. There was no sign of this young man's belongings. And again, It's one thing for a person to disappear, but rifles and things like that, guys, I mean, you're talking about a lot of gear. For it just to up and vanish without a trace, it's a hard thing to do unless you take it all with you. If nefarious things happen to Corey, then rationally speaking, somebody took the firearm as well, right? Took his backpack, took his clothing, took all of him, and then took him away. Well, here's the thing, guys. It's not so cut and dry, because a lot of attention was then put on Mark Mapin and this other young man. Maybe they had something to do with it. Theories abounded everywhere. In fact, Corey's grandparents reached out to the sheriff's departments and such and told them, say, look, you know, Corey's grandfather said, I've been hunting with Corey numerous times. I've been out in the wilderness with this kid many times, and my grandson knows how to survive in the wilderness. He certainly wouldn't just not show back up to where he was supposed to be. Shoot his firearm 3 times if he was hurt or missing or disoriented, which is a universal sign of distress. If you're out hunting and you get lost or disoriented or injured, you fire your weapon 3 times at the ground. It's people nearby will hear the weapon fire and they'll know that you need help. There was no signs of any of that. Now, there were some people who were also in the area that said they heard gunshots, but that was never confirmed. Now, aside from bringing in sniffing dogs, which are also cadaver dogs, I mean, they did bring in cadaver dogs to search for this kid in case he was deceased. So they are trained to smell decomposing and dead bodies, and nobody's hitting on that. But 250 searchers couldn't find a single shred of evidence to what happened to Corey. And not only on top of that, guys, with them working out at 10 miles radius and not finding any tracks, now it had started to snow at higher elevations. And this is particularly interesting because if Corey would have went uphill, eventually he would have hit the snow line. And it would have become more difficult for him to go forward. Also, though, it would have left tracks, right? But none of that was ever really reported or talked about. Then, on top of all of this, they looked for 10 days for this kid. I mean, they searched diligently for 10 days and no sign of it. And with the grandparents saying that Corey knew better than to do something stupid in the woods, that he was a smart young man, he knew what he was doing in the woods, as well as even Corey's grandfather went on record saying, I have told my grandson many times that if he becomes lost in the woods and finds a water source, a river, a stream, a creek, anything, follow it downstream. Because if you do that, eventually, in most cases, you're going to run into civilization. You're going to find somebody's home, a bridge, a road, something of safety, right? So this kid knew what he was doing. And his parents were baffled by this. His grandparents were baffled by this. In fact, anybody that knew Corey was baffled by this. Unfortunately, after 10 days of searching, though, the weather was crap. And they called off the search with no signs of anything that had transpired to Corey. Well, any signs that something could have happened to Corey. It's like he just up and vanished. They had no choice but to call off the search. Now, the sheriff's department were really perplexed by this case. And in fact, they were so perplexed by this case that they actually contacted the FBI and asked the FBI to come in and investigate. Which is super interesting also, guys, because normally, police departments, sheriff departments won't reach out to the FBI unless they suspect that something criminal has transpired. Now, this again put Mark Mapin and this other young man under the microscope, but even after the FBI was brought in and investigated, nothing ever came of it. So no charges were filed against Mark Mapin or this other young man, and again, there's no cause. Mark, being either a dear friend to Corey himself or a dear friend to Corey's father, had no motive to kill this young man. However, it should be stated that Corey was adopted, and that there are certain people who have theorized that Corey's father, who was not his biological father, had actually hired Mark Mapin and this other young man to get rid of Corey. But even the FBI, after they got involved, investigated all of these claims and theories because, that's what the FBI does, and they found absolutely no evidence of this. It was not founded in any way, shape, or form, and they dismissed it. No charges were ever filed against family members or Mark Mapin or this other young man. Now, there wasn't any to much activity at all in Corey's disappearance until September of 1992, almost a year later. At this point in time, two hunters that were walking a ridge 10 miles away from where Corey had disappeared and 3,000 feet higher in elevation at about 6,000 feet came across Corey's rifle in his backpack. Then about half a mile away from that, they found his jacket and a tooth and small bone fragments. This was truly disconcerting to these two hunters. Obviously, they had heard the story of Corey disappearing a year prior, and so they reached out to law enforcement. Law enforcement came in. They couldn't find any more evidence of this kid. There was no more signs of this could have been Corey. However, it was. These were the remains of Corey Fay. Unfortunately, the tooth that was found and the small fragments of bone were taken in by coroners. They were examined, and it was found out to be Corey Fay. But here's the weird thing. This video is not necessarily about what happened to Corey as far as never finding him, as some of my videos are. If you watch some of those prior videos, sometimes people disappear and they are never found. Corey's body, very little of it, though it was found. A tooth and small bone fragments. But this video is more about what happened, why it happened to Corey. Because here's the mystery, guys. Not only did Corey disappear, and there was no evidence, dogs couldn't find him, 250 searchers couldn't find him, spread out in a 10-mile radius, no sign of him, no tracks, no nothing. All right? But then a year later, Corey's remains, very little of him, was found in his backpack, his rifle, and his jacket. They never found his pants. They never found his boots, anything like that. Now, boots are rugged, guys. They do not deteriorate. Even under worse weather conditions, a year later, even if you leave your boots out on your back porch in snow and rain and sunshine, they'll still be there the next year. Corey's boots were never found. The only thing that was found of him was his rifle, his jacket, his backpack, and small bone fragments, which in the reports, there's no real discussion of what those bone fragments were. We don't know if it was small portions of his skull. The only real identifier to Corey was his one tooth, which is super strange, right? Well, when this happened, when they discussed this and the sheriff's department came out, they said, well, a year before when we were using helicopters to look for Corey, we did cover this area and we did see tracks in the snow, but the snow was waist deep. And so we just assumed that they were animal tracks. If this is the case, one thing should be understood. A helicopter that the type of helicopter that the sheriff's department was using couldn't land in waist-deep snow. All right? So it's not like they landed, got out, and discovered the tracks were animal tracks. That means they saw it at elevation and they assumed that those tracks were animal tracks. And they didn't continue to look in that area for Corey. But also the thing is that if there's a helicopter in the area and you're lost in the wilderness, then why didn't Corey hear the helicopter and then try to signal the helicopter in some way, shape, or form? Remember, he did have the ability to start fire. He did have a reflective blanket. He also had his rifle with him because the rifle was found up there. Also super strange to me is that why did a kid who was well-versed in the outdoors, knew the wilderness survival, proceed to go 3,000 feet uphill in elevation and 10 miles away from where he originally started hunting, and then trek through waist-high snow? I mean, you're talking about snow that's 3 to 4 feet deep, uphill to this ridge where apparently he died. Now, how he died, again, that's a mystery. I mean, the fact that there was no large bones found, guys, there's no pelvis, no vertebrae, no skull that we know of, unless those small bone fragments were from his skull. There was no humerus. There was no femurs. These are large bones. The pelvis, all these things, guys, I mean, why wasn't this ever found? What happened to the rest of Corey? It's super strange to me. I don't understand it. But the fact is, and the fact remains, is that unfortunately, something terrible happened to Corey Fay. Now, there's speculation that maybe because the weather was cold and whatnot, that maybe Corey started suffering from hypothermia, became disoriented, and then went uphill for some reason into the snow line and then through waist-deep snow. And to get from where he was to where his body was found, it's also very important to understand that not only would he have had to trek through waist-deep snow, but he would have had to trek for about 5 miles in waist-deep snow to get to where his body remains were found to die there of exposure, if he died of exposure. Some people have speculated that there's a large mountain lion population in the area, and that maybe he was attacked by a large cat, and that the cat carried him up to elevation. But then, did the cat carry his backpack and his rifle as well? Did the cat take off his jacket before he attacked him? Because there was no sign of animal predation on the jacket. And again, Corey's pants were never found, his boots were never found. And no other evidence of Corey exists other than small bone fragments and a tooth. A super baffling case, guys, and I would love to hear what you think about it. What do you think happened to Corey Carl Fay? Please leave me something in the comment section below. I would love to hear your opinion on it. I'm at a loss. I have no clue. It is always going to baffle me how people who are well-versed in the outdoors end up off in the middle of nowhere, either disappearing completely or dying under mysterious circumstances. I don't understand. I mean, theories abound about hypothermia, animal predation, or murder. But I'd love to hear, again, what you have to say. So make sure you do leave me something. Aside from that, that's all I got, guys. I don't have anything else. But I do want to wish you, again, a Happy New Year. I'm sorry that my uploading schedule is just so sparse. But like I said, right now, guys, I'm working 50 hours a week. I'm in school 30 hours a week in the evenings. And 80-hour weeks are burning the candle at both ends for sure. But I am uploading when I can. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, which leads me to say, if you did, please click that thumbs up button. Turn it blue for me. It helps me out, lets me know you're enjoying the content. Also, if you have a case, a mysterious case, or anything that you'd like for me to cover, leave it in the comment section below. Always love hearing from you guys. And last but not least, guys, there's a donate button up on my channel. If you guys feel like helping me out some, keeping the channel going, or supporting the channel monetarily, by all means, feel free to donate. It would definitely help a brother out. But all in all, if you are new to the channel and you haven't subscribed yet and you enjoyed this video, go ahead and click subscribe, hit the bell, make it ring. That way you don't miss out on my next upload and you'll get the notifications. But that is it for Patrick today, guys. I am out of here and I will see you guys in the next video.